My husband's estranged father lured me into a dangerous meeting to reveal secrets about his past. My husband's estranged father lured me into a dangerous meeting to reveal secrets about his past, but my husband secretly followed and saved me. I, a 29-year-old female, met my wonderful husband, Steve, a 28-year-old male 3 years ago. Steve is working as a sales representative in an automobile dealership. I was a bartender, but left the job after getting pregnant. It was Steve's suggestion to leave the job so I could stay home. He was concerned about the safety of both the child and me. This was understandable coming from him since he lost his mother during childbirth. She passed away giving birth to him. One day, I saw a message request on Facebook from an unknown profile. It read, "Hey, I'm Steve's buddy from back home. Can we talk?" I thought it would be something important, so I accepted the message request and replied with a hey. The first thing he asked was not to tell Steve about this conversation. I declined and told him that it was impossible. We had a transparent relationship. We had the space in our relationship to share everything. The guy replied, "It's about his father." That made me curious. I promised the guy I would keep this a secret from Steve. The guy said that Steve's father, Michael, was suffering from leukemia and he had very few weeks left. I should add more context. When I met Steve initially, he said that both his parents were no more. As we got close, one day he revealed that his father could be still alive, but he doesn't know or care. He went no contact with his father immediately after moving out. He was 18 then. I didn't have any other details about what went on between them, but I understood that they were not on good terms. This friend was requested by his father to approach me. Michael knew that I was pregnant. I thought Michael wanted me to help him reconcile with Steve to die a peaceful death. Michael wanted my contact number. Since I was still not ready to trust them, he sent a childhood photo of Steve. I recognized him as I had seen a few of his childhood photos, so I gave him my number. The next day while Steve was at work, his father texted me. He asked me what Steve had told me about him. I said I knew very little and Steve rarely talked about him. After this, we talked on the phone. His voice was feeble. I assumed this could be from his illness. He talked to me in a very regretful tone. He regretted not being able to be a good presence in his son's life. After the death of Steve's mother, his father sacrificed all he had to bring him up. They were best buddies. His father never remarried, and his wish was to be with Steve till his last breath. His sentences always ended with a deep sigh of regret. I felt bad for him. I was surprised that Steve never told me about all this. I asked his father if I could do something to ease the friction between them, but he declined the offer. He said that he was content with the fact that Steve is in the safe hands of a lovely wife. Such a sweet guy, right? That's what I thought as well. Michael and I exchanged a few messages every day. I inquired about the condition of his illness and he asked me about our well-being. He still did not want Steve to know about our conversations, but these conversations were not reaching anywhere. My instinct said that Michael wanted some favor from me, so one day I asked him. He told me that there are certain things about Steve that he wanted me to know, but he would share those with me only when he trusted me completely. I was ready to wait. It was during one of those days that I suspected a foreign app on my phone. I checked the hidden apps section of my phone and found that there was a tracking app. The app was linked to Steve's phone. When Steve got home, I confronted him. He told me that it was just an app to track location, but I felt like it was a breach of trust. He told me that he installed that on my phone when I got pregnant. It was for the safety of me and the baby. I was annoyed not at the fact that there was a tracking app installed on my phone. I was angry because Steve kept it a secret from me. I asked him to unlink our phones and then uninstall the application. But this left me suspicious about Steve. From the conversations with his father, I had already realized that there were parts of his life about which I had no idea. From experience with the app, I learned that my husband had the ability to keep secrets from me. It also made me doubt whether he had trust issues with me, but he talked reassuringly about his trust in me. And I was convinced. Why was he paranoid about my safety during pregnancy? I felt there was more to it than the death of his mother. I did not share this incident with anyone, but I got curious about what else Steve might have hidden from me. So the next time I talked to Michael, I asked him a few questions. The main question was why they both went no contact. Michael talked about a pastor, I never imagined my husband had. Steve was a drug addict during his teenage years. He got into the wrong friendships and almost lost himself. Michael was furious when he learned about it. He did everything in his capacity to save Steve. Though Steve recovered from drug use, his father's attitude towards him ruined their relationship. Steve could not face his father, and so he moved out and cut contact with him. His description of Steve's addiction was very graphic. He gave me details of the center that Steve stayed in during rehabilitation, but this didn't change my attitude toward Steve. I was just shocked that he did not share this with me. Whenever I learned about certain things Steve hid from me, I always blamed myself for not making a comfortable space for him to share. Michael was unavailable for the next few days. I was worried about him. So when he replied to my texts, I felt great relief. He told me that his condition worsened and he was hospitalized for a few days, though I had never met him in real life. I felt a sense of despair in my heart. I wanted Steve to meet him and talk out their issues before it was too late. I proposed that to Michael. His answer was no. He told me that since Steve had a good wife who loved him, he wouldn't be bothered about Steve during his death. But there was someone else in his life he worried about. This was the secret he had kept hidden from his son for the past 10 years. This is the reason why he contacted me. He was hesitant at first to open up. He was worried about my mental health. He made me promise that whatever I learned about Steve from him was not going to change my love for Steve. Now this got my head spinning. What could be Steve's darkest secret? I was curious to know, but at the same time, the chances of it ruining our marriage forced me to just block his father and leave. But like every time in life, my curiosity won. Now came the next roadblock. He was not ready to do this over text. It was too emotional for him. He wanted me to meet someone. He did not want Steve to know about this, and that's why he preferred talking to me. I have kept this a secret from Steve for the past 10 years, but with me dying, I don't know what will happen to her. He was not ready to elaborate any further. I have already revealed too much, was his reaction when I forced him to speak more about it. At first, he wanted to visit me at home when Steve went to work, but there were cameras on the front porch. Steve would know that we had a visitor. I suggested a cafe in our town, but he said it would be unsafe for him to visit such a crowded place. It was also unsafe for her, he added. He suggested to me a place by the riverbank that had a few benches. I knew the place. The place offered ample privacy during the day as it was only crowded during the evening and was not close to residential areas. Never once during this whole discussion did I feel a need to inform about any of this to Steve. I wanted to know about Steve. I wanted to know who the woman or girl his father was mentioning was. Curiosity got me this time as well. On the day of the meeting, I got a call from Steve immediately after I left my home. He called me a few more times, but I did not feel like talking to him. I drove my car to the place. When I reached there, it was close to 2 p.m., I saw a van parked close to one of the benches. My phone rang. It was Michael. He opened the door of the van and walked towards me. Michael looked healthier than I had imagined him to be. He looked like Steve, but his body was much weaker. But I didn't see anyone else there. Where was the woman or girl that he was talking about? After initial greetings, I asked him where the other person was. He told me that he was scared to bring her here, but she was staying close and we could go there together in his van. It was at this moment I gauged the chances of this being a dangerous situation. He might have suspected this, so he added that the she he was talking about was Steve's daughter from a previous marriage. He showed me 2 photos. One was an old photo of Steve with a woman. To my horror, the woman was pregnant. She looked much older than Steve. The second one was a photo of a girl. She was not more than 10 years of age. Steve still doesn't know that he has a daughter. Courtney was pregnant when he left. She OD'd a few years later. Since then, I've been taking care of his daughter, he said while handing me the photos. Around the same time, I got a text message from Steve. I read it from the notifications. Give me some reason and walk over to your car. Your life is in danger. I lost it. I gathered that Steve was watching me from somewhere. I had so many questions in my head. Who was this pregnant woman? Why did Steve never talk about me to her? But I decided to trust Steve one more time. I told his father that I would get my purse from my car so that we could travel to his place. I walked with all my strength to the car, got in, and locked it from the inside. Within 10 seconds, I could hear police sirens. Steve suddenly appeared from the other side of the road and knocked on my car door. I locked it again as soon as he entered. I was clueless about what was happening. Michael was trying to escape while 2 police cars rushed to the scene and arrested him. Steve was up in arms at me for hiding my conversations with his father. I shouted at him for keeping his first marriage a secret from me. I showed him the photos. He was even more furious now. He called his father a sociopath and called me dumb for trusting someone from the internet. So wasn't this his father? He told me it was. Now I'm even more confused. All I wanted to do was help Steve cope with his past if he had some trouble. That's why I took all this risk and kept it a secret from him. Now we have reached home, and he refuses to talk to me. I'm yet to get a complete picture of the events, but I feel like Steve has failed me. Am I the a-hole for keeping the conversations with my father-in-law a secret from my husband for his own well-being? I understood that after uninstalling the tracking app from my phone, Steve installed another app that mirrored my phone activity. This meant that he had access to everything that I did on my phone. I hate him for doing this. Major update. I just learned that if I had spent 10 more seconds with Michael, he would have kidnapped me. Issues between Steve and his father began as soon as he was born. Steve underwent physical abuse from his father almost daily. Michael accused Steve of the death of his wife. I was shocked to learn all this. Then I showed Steve the photos. He said that the pregnant woman was a friend and this was a photo taken at someone's birthday party. Michael always threatened Steve about killing his wife in the future if she ever got pregnant. Now I understand why Steve was paranoid about my safety. Steve went no contact with his father when the abuse became unbearable. Update 3. Police questioned Michael. He planned to abduct me and push Steve into a panic. I feel so embarrassed thinking how credulous I was to believe the lies told by some internet stranger. He did not have leukemia. Steve never had a drug problem. Everything was a lie. His father had a history of drug abuse. His father was the one acting as Steve's buddy on Facebook as well. I had no idea what a dangerous man I was dealing with and walked right into danger. What if his father was here to kill me? Just thinking about it gives me chills. Holy, that's a story that you can tell your grandkids someday. But I feel that no one is perfect in this story. Steve was secretive about his past that created a lot of confusion for you. You will know better. If a person went no contact with a family member, it's obvious that the reason would be very strong. So as soon as you came to know that it was Michael, you should have informed Steve about this. I have no comments about his father. Such vile people should rot in hell, Uta. If you had a tiny bit of common sense, you would believe your partner over someone from the internet. Though Steve should have informed you about the tracking apps on your phone. Ultimately, that's what saved your life, so you can't complain. My wife doesn't like my mother. Some of it is valid. Some of it I honestly feel is looking for reasons to be mad at her. However, she is currently pretty hurt as my mom doesn't show much interest in our son. My wife grew up in a very close loving family and this bothers her. Our son recently had his first birthday, and my mom came with her 15-year-old stepdaughter, Rose. Rose is a pretty big brat. She demanded jewelry when my mom got her engagement ring, and said her dad should give her an elaborate gift to equal the cost of the wedding. This isn't even a kid acting out because her dad is remarried. She wanted him to marry my mom. This is just how she acts. My mom's husband is lazy. I know he loves her, but he's too lazy to parent and is one of those every other weekend Disney dads, though he recently got primary custody, but only because she's older. My mom showed up to the party and my wife was immediately on edge. My mom gave a kind of shitty gift. I know it isn't about gifts, but still. And a couple of minutes later, Rose asked my mom if they could go to Michael's when they left and get more supplies for her hobby. My mom said yes, and Rose said, okay. And you better spend more on me than you did on that baby. My wife and I both looked at my mom, but she didn't correct Rose. My mom wasn't eating much because she had some sensitivity to the main menu item, not allergies. Think sensory stuff that is hard to predict. And Rose announced that she was telling her dad. My mom was like, telling him what? And Rose said she was telling him that we didn't have food for my mom. The final straw was when out of nowhere. Rose looked at my mom and said, Do you like me more than that, baby? My mom just started laughing and my wife mouthed, "Get her out of here." So I told my mom they had to go as Rose was being rude and my mom had a bad attitude. My mom acted confused and said they didn't do anything. I said they were upsetting my wife and the mother of my child, and her happiness on that day was my priority. My mom called me effing ridiculous, and Rose was like, "Yay. We can go to Michael's now." But then repeated that she was telling her dad. They left and my in-laws pretty much cheered, but my side was pissed. My grandparents think I was way too hard, and they are ashamed I treated my mom like that. They said I was coddling my wife as Rose is just a bratty teen. NTA, I wouldn't want that nightmare of a child in my house either. And if it takes kicking your mom out to get rid of her, well, I know I'm going to get a lot of hate from cat people, but I have to be honest, I hate cats. I think their litter boxes are gross and I can't stand the smell of cat urine. Also, everyone involved in this situation are adults. Now that I've gotten that out of the way, here's my problem. My parents are hosting Thanksgiving this year, and they invited immediate and extended family. It's going to be huge. My siblings and I own our own houses, so we're splitting up out-of-town family members so no one will have to overpay for hotel rooms. I'm hosting the single cousins so they can have a little fun outside of family time. My cousins started to arrive yesterday. Shelby arrived, and when I opened the door, I saw her standing there with a big smile, her luggage and pet carrier. I pointed to the carrier and asked, "What's that?" She happily told me that she just adopted a cat and didn't want to leave it at home with her roommates. I stood at the door for too long without letting her in, so things got awkward. I admit, I didn't have a no pets rule, but I didn't think I had to. I thought that asking the host if they're cool with pets before bringing them was one of those unwritten rules that people just automatically follow. You know, like you don't have to tell every adult coming into your house not to pee in the kitchen sink. Besides, no one else brought their pets and a couple of them owned dogs. Finally, she asked if she could come in and that brought me back to my senses. I told her I don't allow pets in my house and that her cat can't come in. She thought I was joking, but when I didn't move, we started to argue. The other cousins came to see what the commotion was about, and in the end a couple of cousins left with her while the rest remained. My parents called to chew me out saying that I could have put up with Shelby in her car for a couple of days. While I argue that it's rude to bring a pet without asking first. Plus, I don't want my house to smell like cat urine. They said I'm making Thanksgiving awkward, and now I feel a little bad. I don't feel bad enough to let Shelby and her cat in though. AATA for not letting my cousin and her cat stay at my house because I hate cats? NTA, the absolute nerve in just showing up with a pet without telling the host is crazy. Never in a 1,000 years would I ever think it'd be appropriate to do such a thing.